Hi everyone, sorry, I'm not sure what's happened. We'll try and get Fabian back on for you. Bear with us just one moment.
Here we go. Sorry about that. Sod's law. Just when you think everything's going to go nice and easily, it doesn't. Anyway, thank you for your patience, and thank you, more importantly, for coming today. So often I hear the argument that we should look after our own first, and yes, I hate that phrase because I think people are our own. But anyway, we hear that argument. But today we have attendees from across social housing, from a range of different charities and people from local authorities. It's the very same people who look after our own that understand that no vulnerable person should have to wait to get support because of who they are. So again, thank you so much for attending. Now, not everyone here will have met a refugee or an asylum seeker before, but you will definitely have heard of at least one. So there's Malala, who is the Nobel Peace Prize winner, Mo Farah, who is arguably one of Britain's greatest ever athletes, Baron Alf Dubs, who is a member of the House of Lords, and Rita Ora, of course, a global pop star. And the reason I mention that is because whilst, yes, today we are going to be using the terms of refugee and the term asylum seeker, we have to remember that we are first and foremost talking about people. They come from across the world, and with that have a range of backgrounds, beliefs, and reasons for searching for safety outside of their original, their country of origin. Now, on Tuesday, I watched the documentary For Summer, and it made me cry a lot. It made me think a lot, and eventually, I was reminded of a quote from one of the learners at the organisation I volunteer at, Nest, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but what they had said was that some of us, we have very bad memories, but when we are at Nest, we cannot help but to be happy, and I think that's it. We do not have the power to change what has happened to people in the past. What we can do, however, is to welcome refugees and asylum seekers into our communities. We can build homes that provide them with hope and empowerment, and we can make sure that they have access to the specialist services and legal advice that they need. And I really hope that by the end of today, you decide to use the power that you have in the housing sector. This is the power that the housing sector, any individual within it, no matter what position they are in, that is the power that you have. Please don't turn away after today. So, what does today look like? Well, we're going to start off with an interview that is by Molly Octoloni interviewing William, who is an LGBTQ plus asylum seeker supported by Micro Rainbow. There'll then be a short break before a panel discussion hosted by Hope Williams with 4 fantastic panelists who you've all seen on your invites. We will then have some audience participation, a quick closing presentation, and then an hour-long opportunity to network. It is a great opportunity given the number of people that are here today and the wide range of organizations and sectors that they come from. So I really hope that you can make it. Now, if you are affected by any of the issues that are raised today, I'm just going to quickly post into the chat a crisis page which covers a lot of the issues and refers you to different organizations that you can contact. So that's there for you now. Now, today, just because of the short amount of time, we won't be able to cover every topic that affects refugees and asylum seekers, but we do hope to create an executive summary of sorts, which will hopefully kind of inform you about the areas most important to housing. Now, this isn't an event for event's sake. We want this to lead to action. And so it is going to be up to you to take what you learned today and the connections that you make to educate yourself more and be that difference in the lives of refugees and asylum seekers. And on that note, it's time to meet Molly and William. Thank you very much, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
And hi, Liam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for being here today. And just for coming to chat with us and telling your story with us. We really appreciate it. It's great to hear from you. Just for those who don't know, Liam is currently an asylum seeker and kindly agreed to be part of our event today to share his story and his views on refugee and asylum seeker issues within the world of housing. And Liam is also a beneficiary of the charity Micro Rainbow, who we're going to find out a little bit more later with the panel discussion. But before I get going, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. So Micro Rainbow is an organisation that aims to address issues of poverty and isolation amongst LGBTQ plus asylum seekers and refugees in the UK. They have safe houses in London, Birmingham and Leeds, and they run social groups to reduce isolation and build community, as well as moving on to workshops to help LGBTQ plus asylum seekers and refugees build a new life in the UK. So William, thank you again for being here. I'd like to just kick off this discussion by asking you if you could share your story with us and how, and also why you came to the UK.
All right. So basically, first of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me the time and listening to my story. I would like to emphasize that this is just my story, and that every refugee, LGBT, especially LGBTQ plus refugees, they have very unique stories, and we have every story is relevant, and every story has its own like word of suffering and the history of pain that we cannot understand, but we can empathize with. So basically, I just wanted to emphasize that this is just my story, and that all refugees and asylum seekers have their own specific story, and we should always respect that and acknowledge that. Other than that, I wanted to speak about what happened with me back in Lebanon. I was a finance graduate working with a company, and then I was outed by a family member to other family members. That led to severe discrimination and bullying, as well as persecution inside Lebanon. We had to flee, me and my husband, we had to flee inside Lebanon several times because we were followed by family members who were well connected in the government, who wanted to end our relationship, one, and two, they wanted to convert me, so to speak. One of them was actually a doctor, and he was my father, so I didn't expect that out of it. Of my father, like again, a doctor as well. So it was pretty tough, and basically both of us, we became in this mental state where we felt hopeless. We felt like there are no systems put in place to protect us, to shield us, to possibly stop this from happening. On the contrary, we felt that the system in Lebanon, although our generation accepts this more than the older generation, yet the system is ruled by the older generation, who are still very much with very old thoughts and very old beliefs. Of course, so protection wasn't an option. We had to flee several times, and every time they managed to find us. So at the end of it, we had to flee Lebanon and come to the UK. But to be honest, this is what I want to emphasize on the most, because after coming to the UK, you think that you're safe now. And that's the case for a lot of asylum seekers, but for LGBT asylum seekers, that's not the case, sadly. They reach here and they're faced with another form of discrimination, another form of homophobia. But this time it's internalized, because they're being put in a place where everyone is refugees and asylum seekers, and they still have the mentality that homosexuals and LGBT people are not something good, and they still bully those in temporary accommodation. So that didn't stop there. We faced a lot of issues. We had to be moved several times because several people were bullying us. Several people, like for me, when I came here, I was like, I can hold my husband's hand and walk on the street finally. But whenever we were out of our rooms in the hostel, we would be faced with this bad culture. This is why I wanted to emphasize, not just for me, for all LGBTQ asylum seekers, when they come here, they think that they're safe, but it's not. It's a double jeopardy, because when they leave home, they're fleeing persecution. And when they come here, they're faced with another form of bullying that sometimes they don't know that they can do something about it. They're not even informed that they can call the police, and they're protected here. It's not like it was back in their country. And that's what creates a lot of uh, gap between people living here and new people arriving here. They believe that they're arriving here, so they should be already familiar with everything happening here, so we shouldn't worry about that. But that's not the case. A lot of safeguarding and a lot of sensitivity training has to go into the officers even. And what I noticed is sometimes in temporary accommodation, there's not even enough officers there to handle like the workload, let alone the personal problems of every person coming as an asylum seeker who already went through trauma. You can't have 2 officers for 200 asylum seekers. So there was a lot of, so yeah, at the end, basically someone tried to rape my husband when we were still in temporary accommodation, and the Home Office and the government, they don't listen until it becomes physical. And that's a big gap as well. They don't listen to your emails, all of this, and I can communicate in English. Other asylum seekers cannot communicate in English. They don't know that to go online and search what they can do. All of this, and we still got faced with all of these troubles. So I really cannot even begin to imagine what other people face, but what we faced as well was traumatic. Like, I didn't feel myself. I couldn't think properly. Because when I came from Lebanon, me and my husband, we were under a huge trauma. So even in temporary accommodation, it felt more. Up until we were introduced to Micro Rainbow, and they started including us in their social inclusion sessions back then, while they were trying to move us to a safe house. They were always advising us on what to do, what are our rights. That was a huge help. It was a lifeline for me and him, basically. And when we moved to the house here in Birmingham with them, it was actually the best thing ever, because I started feeling like myself again. Not right away, because I was still faced with all of that. That trauma happened before, but after some while, I started feeling like, okay, I'm myself again. I can work. I can like work on myself, work on my skills, be included in more activities with Micro Rainbow that are involved with moving on, not just the social activities. So that was a huge helpline for me. Basically, that's up until now. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for even sharing that. I think that's extremely brave for you to share your story, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. And I'm just so happy that Micro Rainbow was there, and that it's an opportunity that others don't have, that you were able to find. And I think that's brilliant. And I think it leads me on really nicely to kind of how important has Micro Rainbow's support been to you?
It has a huge support. Since even before moving to the house, because we were every day, if there was a session, social inclusion session, like dance session, painting session, that gets you out of the mood that you're in temporary accommodation. And just knowing your rights and knowing, I was volunteering as well with them back then a bit. So it was very good to have something to do rather than sit and be thinking about what happened and thinking about the situation I'm in. Like, I had to leave a whole life behind, just like everyone else who came here, good or bad. I had to leave a whole life behind, friends, family, everyone. And coming here as well, you feel that, and especially that we don't have anyone here. We didn't come here because we have family or we have friends here. So it was a bit difficult for us. We felt isolated. And being with, on top of that, COVID, hello. Was like, we couldn't even exit our rooms because of the lockdown. So I'm like, so yeah, I'm very thankful for Micro Rainbow for that.
Definitely. And how important do you think it was to have a space that is specifically for LGBTQ plus asylum seekers? Because you made that distinction when we were first speaking about how, you think you're safe when you come to the UK, but you're not, because you were still being harassed and bullied by other refugees and asylum seekers who you were with. So how important was it for you to have that separate space to feel safe?
It was important. It was the most important thing back then because basically I didn't know anyone here except my husband, and he didn't know anyone here except me. So having to talk to other people who are LGBT, I felt it's like an affirmation for me that I'm not in this alone. There are other LGBT asylum seekers going through this. I was connected with them. We shared our stories. I felt comfortable sharing my story with them because I was in a safe place. And that's the importance of Micro Rainbow. They create this safe place where you can feel that there's a safety bubble around you, even if you're not yet in their accommodation. But you feel that you are informed, you're being empowered with information even before anything happens.
Absolutely.
Which is important to be proactive about these things, which is very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And why do you think it's important that, in general, people support refugees and asylum seekers, having gone through your experience?
All right. Basically, when people leave their countries and come here, they're not choosing to do that because they were happy in their countries, but they wanted to do a better opportunity here. And I was asked one of the questions in the feedback that I was asked to provide for a law firm, DLA Piper, that they were kind enough with Micro Rainbow. Of course, they facilitated sessions with DLA Piper over 5 weeks to teach us about our rights and what to expect here and those kind of things and the rules and regulations of the UK. And basically, they asked me about what were my career goals when I came here. And I think this applies to every asylum seekers. I was like, there were no career goals. I wasn't even thinking about my career. No one and people need to keep that in mind. People come here not because they choose to come here, not because whatever it is, a person would choose to remain in his country. Like I was working in Lebanon. I used to come to the UK for a vacation. I used to go to France, Italy, Europe as a vacation, but I never imagined leaving my home, leaving my friends, leaving my community and having to start over again from scratch. It's very hard and every support helps. Even sometimes asylum seekers, even information, supporting them with information is very helpful more than anything else because empowering, it's like give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach the man how to fish, he'll eat every day. Empowering them with information, like there's a local food bank you can use, there is this and that and this and that. It's very important for them. So yeah, anyone can support asylum seekers, and it doesn't take just money. If they couldn't with money, they could with services, with volunteering, with providing whatever they can, because basically we're a very low percentage of the population, especially here in the UK, and you can't imagine like in Lebanon. Lebanon is the size of Wales. It's like 10,000 square kilometers. It has 4 million Lebanese people. But our neighbor Syria, because there's war, you know how many Syrian refugees are in Lebanon? 2 million Syrian refugees are in Lebanon, with only 4 million people living in Lebanon. Like 4 million Lebanese. On top of that, 2 million, like the percentage of refugees in Lebanon is 50% of the population almost, or 30% of the population, much higher than the UK. Yet, we don't see the same culture in Lebanon of not accepting refugees because maybe they are our neighbors. Syria is our neighbor, maybe because of that. But this culture of this person is an alien to us should no longer exist in this world in day and age, because we're all connected. We all know what's happening everywhere with a click of a button. So we can't sit and dehumanize ourselves.
Absolutely. I could listen to you speak all day, and I'm really good at having more time. But thank you so much for being here and telling your story and being part of the discussion. And I really look forward to hearing more of your views in the panel discussion this afternoon.
Thank you, dear. Thanks.
Thank you so much.